don't have time to go into the story. I'll save it for later.
I look forward to that. All right, looks like we are recording and we're live. So sorry,
We're ready.
Awesome, thank you. So
Thank you, Lisa.
we'll hand it to Joe for the presentation.
Okay.
Joe had just recapped that the building committee last Monday had recommended to us that we approve CTA, and we had taken that vote. And you were about to tell us about new information, I think.
Yep. So the next day after our school committee meeting, there was a packet that was received by a school building committee member, and that information was disseminated to the school building committee, and I believe the school committee. And in that had some new information about CTA that was concerning. And concerning enough that I got together with Carol and Peter McNulty, who is our counsel, and Chad, and we discussed it, and we felt that we needed to revisit the responsibleness of CTA as the awarding bid. So basically what we did is we set a meeting. We had a meeting yesterday. We had a lengthy discussion on the information at hand. And I don't know if we need to get into that information here. We can, if you want, or if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them, or Chad can answer them. However, it's, as I said in the building committee meeting yesterday, the packet information that was received, we hear a lot, that, if it was on Facebook, it must be true, kind of thing. So I didn't put much credence in the packet that we received. So I was able to reach out to a few of the groups that were included in that packet that were concerning. One of them, I spoke to Craig DiCarlo. He was from Colliers. He worked on the DOT district headquarter building that CTA was in charge of, just to confirm that the information in that packet was indeed correct. And he said at the time of the submission of that information, it was true and accurate. I also spoke with the town manager in Dedham, Leon Goodwin, and they did a they did a town hall project there, and spoke with him at length about the project. Even though he was not there at the time of the project, he is still cleaning up a lot of what CTA has left behind on that. So I was just trying to make sure that the information in that packet, as best I could, was accurate from what I could see and heard from 3 different people that it was. So I disseminated that, and I let the building committee know that was true. We had a discussion at the building committee, and in the end, we voted first to determine that CTA was not a responsible bidder. So we voted on that, and I believe that was 15-2, Carol. I can't remember. 15 to, yeah.
10 to 5.
10 to 5
is what I remember.
10 to 5. I'm sorry. Right. I didn't write that down. So it was 10 to 5 was the vote. And to go back real quick, the original vote when we voted CTA as a responsible bidder, that vote was 9 to 7. So there were 9 people voting for CTA to be responsible, and 7 that were voted against. So that vote being so close was another cause to try to loop around to just, to see, especially with the new information. After that, we voted, since we voted that 10 to 5, that CTA was not a responsible bidder. We circled back around. Chad showed us the next bidder, Commodore Builders, who was the next lowest bidder, and we discussed them, and we discussed the information that was given to us by PMA. There was no real, we never compared anything. We didn't compare CTA to Commodore. We had taken CTA out of the picture, and we looked at just the credentials of Commodore by themselves. And in the end, we voted, I believe it was unanimously, to award, not unanimously, I abstained, to award Commodore Builders or to recommend to the school committee here to award the bid for the school project. So I guess that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't know if there's any questions or concerns. I think one of the things that has come up a lot is the fact is, why are we doing this so quickly? And one of the some of the answers, and one of the main answers, is that the subcontractors in this project also have to submit bids too, and their bid, they have a 30-day window that they can pull their bids, and that 30 days was actually up yesterday. So there is a sense of urgency for having to execute a contract as quickly as possible. PMA feels that the subcontractors should be able to hold their numbers, but they couldn't guarantee how long. They may pull their numbers and it might cost us more, but the longer we wait, the more money it could potentially cost us. So that's kind of where we're at, Jenny.
Thanks. So before we discuss it, we should have a motion on the table. So based on that recommendation, Joe, do you want to make the motion with the number?
Yes, I can if you want. I'd like to make a motion that we award the school building project to Commodore Builders in the amount of $83,843,640.
Second.
Joe, Carol is raising her hand. I don't know.
Yeah. Carol, you just got to mute.
I think our attorney Peter is raising his hand, but I think we have to, and he's probably going to say this, but I think we have to rescind the prior vote first.
Oh,
You're
okay.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Joe, you'll withdraw that motion.
I'll withdraw my motion, and I'll make a motion that we. Okay. Pete, just so I will make a motion to rescind the award to CTA for the building project, the Matic, I believe it's under now the Matikes Middle School building project.
Second.
Okay, so is there discussion on this motion to rescind the approval of CTA? Bill, did you have discussion on that? I see your hand still up.
I endorsed, I was a member of the building committee, as was our colleague Jim Dykeman. The discussion was very long, and it centered around material, 61 pages being sent by a third party, 91 pages being sent by CAT. I downloaded all of them. I read all of them. They clearly had opposite viewpoints, but one of the questions I had was, where did these papers come from? Who was the third party? And it was revealed that the third party was probably the Carpenters Union, as part of a third party sending of material out. Not the first time this has happened. It came to light, and if I may read a passage from the Attorney General's for 3 sentences pertaining to third-party material sent for awarding authorities such as the building committee, and the bigger authority is, of course, the school committee. With your permission, Madam Chair, could I read that?
Sure.
This was an advisory letter sent by the Office of the Attorney General, issued to city and town solicitors. Quote, many awarding authorities are receiving third-party input about contractors during the pre-qualification stage and are unsure what to do with it. And this is what the building committee found itself in. That's my insertion, it's not the quote. Going back to the quote, in the awarding authority receives unsolicited negative information about the contract from a third party for which the awarding authority may deduct points. The contractor should have the opportunity to rebut such information. Basic fairness requires notification to the contractor that this information has been received and an opportunity to respond to this information, which may be false or misleading, unquote. And there was also an additional note in this letter. The Division of Capital Asset Management has also issued similar recommendations to awarding authorities. We did indeed, by basis of this type of advice, had a representative from CAT there who spent time verbally after the discussion took place, presenting his case, in addition to the materials that they also sent by email. Other parties, including members of the school committee and members of the building committee, should have received most of these papers as well. But I found myself confident enough from legal advice under this difficult decision-making circumstance to go ahead and review and renew our, as a building committee member, our recommendation to the school committee. Thank you.
Joe Lynn was next.
Yeah, I guess I had a couple questions. I'm getting real feedback. I don't know if somebody else. Okay. I just had a few questions. I don't know if it's okay to bring Chad in and ask a couple of questions. But my problem is with the whole process here, because what's to keep, well, first, I want to make it clear or understand fully, we are the recommending authority. The building committee is just recommending to us, the overall school committee, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that our due diligence, I just don't want to be a rubber stamp on this. And my other concern is what's to keep a separate group or the Carpenters Union or any other people who are opposed to Commodore to come in and give us information this weekend until Monday. I will note that the vote was close previously when it was 9-7, but it was a vote. And then it came to the school committee. And I had pretty much, when it came to the school committee, I had seen something about it, but I don't want to undermine the building committee. You've done a lot of work, hours and hours, but as George Davis says, this is the single most important decision that we as a school committee and the building committee can make, on this project. It's upwards towards $100 million or, 800. We've by virtue of this decision, it's become more expensive. And I'd like to know what that number is. I don't know if it's 500,000 or whatever it is, but $500,000 here, $500,000 there ends up being real money. And I'm not questioning any of the members of the building committee. I think the process is flawed. I'd like to know what the difference in scores were to the two that we know. I understand that the process says that we can't know what the other bidders have done. But I'd like to ask Chad what they think the probability, the likelihood, the high likelihood, or if it's improbable that there'll be a bid protest on this. And what happens then? And if we got a lot of information on CTA, but we don't have a lot of information on Commodore. And the building committee had and Sandy made good points about that we had questions and we kind of had a bad feeling about that Sandy had a bad feeling about this recommendation, the first recommendation of CTA. And I kind of got a bad feeling about this process because I don't think that we should be rubber stamping it. I think that we should have the same conversations that the building committee had and be informed as such. Because, George Davis was a builder. Eric Tolley's an architect. He wasn't there at the meeting. There are other people who are, administrators and school people, and all of those people are important in the building committee process. And some of the people were, Phil was on the building committee when the approval of the renovation of the high school, and there were problems with that. And again, I'm not questioning anybody's due diligence. I just think that we should right now take the due diligence. I would also note that that it wasn't when George Davis asked the question to delay and try to get more information. the subcontractor urgency issue came up. And it was like, well, you guys have to make the decision yesterday because that subcontractor bill bid is ended yesterday. Well, we're voting on it today. So yesterday's decision, I mean, I think if George Davis were to vote on that and know that there were 5 days, that would be, if he had 5 more days, I think that's what he was asking for. And there were people missing from that committee. But again, whatever this, I want to have the same excitement I had last week when we recommended the previous contractor, and I don't want to take away from that excitement or any of the work that anybody's done. But I want to make sure that that we do our due diligence. But I'd like to ask Chad those questions.
Thanks, Joe. Perhaps Chad, do you mind waiting just 1 second? I want to have Zane and Joe Tierney weigh in, and then maybe you can answer everybody's questions at once, if that's all right.
Sure.
I think Zane was next.
Thank you. So I had 2 things. Number one, when I had done some research about it, I understand that this is sort of a self-report process by the contractors, and I think it's important that everybody knows, or from what my understanding of it is that we almost had to take the word for the contractor, which is really frustrating. It's really frustrating, and I plan to, find out where to write a letter if that does anything at all, because this is way too much money, and this is a taxpayer issue. And I don't think that the building committee did anything wrong. It sounds like the state failed us in a lot of respect, and how they make this order of operations kind of go. But the second part of it was, now that this process was opened up and we were able to evaluate, the one part I didn't quite get was, were we able to compare or look into Commodore at all? And that was what I had, which is a little bit of what Joe was getting into as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Zane. Joe Tierney.
Yeah. No, I agree with Zane. This process, I think, is tremendously flawed. Cleon Turner, who's on the building committee, and I think he might be here. He from a lawyer standpoint of view, he was just dumbfounded to the fact that this is just a crazy law, and why can't you compare the two? It's crazy, but it is what it is. Peter McNulty, our counsel, and Chad Crittenden basically said we can't we can't do a comparative analysis of all the bidders, and that was pretty much straightforward. Even though it was terrible, we had to go by what the information we had on that bidder CTA at the time, and that's what we did, and that's how the vote went down. Once we found CTA not responsible, and we moved on to and saw that the numbers at Commodore, now we've seen the ones from CTA and we saw the ones from Commodore, and they were drastically better. And that's why I kind of dug in a little bit to find out some information about CTA at the time. And speaking with Leon Goodwin, the Dedham town manager, he shared with me that he had the CTA firm was doing the town hall in Dedham, but they are now in contract with Commodore to do another project in town. And he said to me that they were night and day. It was like night and day. And that, to me, when I get it from an actual person who's worked with 2 different companies, that I feel that is arbitrary, because all he is the town manager, and he's a new town manager that just had come in, I believe, in 2018 or 19. That to me speaks volumes. So, and I understand Joe's concern about waiting, but I don't see the difference if we wait 2 days or 3 days. I mean, you can look stuff up, as you're sitting here on your Zoom call, and have it right in front of you. I just don't, if we turn down Commodore, then we go to the next one. Who knows what's going to be behind the next door? Like I said in the school committee meeting, it's like a Monty Hall, let's make a deal. And you don't know what's behind door number 2 until you give up door number 1. So I feel that we need to proceed with this. And I don't know if Chad can share that information that we saw from Commodore or not. I'm not sure. I don't know if Peter had any information or anything that we need to be concerned with.
Before we go to Chad or Peter, I just want to weigh in here, and I try not to weigh in until the end as the chair, but you know, when we were all very excited to, as Joe Glenn said, we were all very excited to, authorize CTA last Monday. It felt like a really great step forward. And, when we received that packet of information from some anonymous third party, apparently may or may not be union related, whatever, a lot of those documents speak for themselves. They are performance evaluations of CTA, and they were failing. But even without that, even before that packet arrived, when I found out that the building committee found CTA to be a responsible bidder based on information that was provided to the building committee at that meeting, when the bids were unveiled, including the fact that CTA had 44 lawsuits in the last 5 years, I was frankly shocked that the building committee, and now I understand the vote was 9-7 and it was a close vote, but that was information that was readily available and presented to the building committee that night, as and it was also possible for the building committee to do independent research. Although Chad and Peter and others couldn't weigh in, they could do independent research, although the time frame was short, I understand. As an attorney, I often tell people, listen, you can't stop someone from suing you. You can only defend a lawsuit. And I understand that, we understand, we've been sued as a school committee, as a district, as towns, it happens. And just because you've been sued doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. Anybody can sue anybody at any time. But 44 lawsuits in 5 years is a shocking number to me as an attorney and as a member of this school committee. So that alone, I think, would have caused me great concern and would have caused me to vote to not recommend. But the building committee has done its work. And, I know Joe Glynn has a lot of questions about the process, and Joe was concerned that there were certain members weren't at that meeting or they would have liked more time. The bottom line is the building committee voted a recommendation. They voted to rescind, they voted a recommendation. That process is done. And what we have here tonight is a new recommendation. So let's try to stick to what we can do. And, I appreciate Zane's comments. This process, as governed by the Attorney General's office, is convoluted at best. And it can lead, it looks like, to catastrophe, where, you end up not being able to compare bidders and not being able to fully vet a bidder, and end up in a situation where you're working with a contractor that can't complete the job. And that's what we've seen from some of these performance evaluations and what Joe learned from people about CTA. We cannot, even if this project costs more, and Chad can tell us that number, and this project will cost more if we go with the next bidder. But would we rather pay more for a quality contractor? Or do we want to look potentially at a project that, as we've seen from performance evaluations of CTA, goes 17 plus months beyond a projected completion date and costs extra money and time? And, we've already been delayed in this project by lawsuits and by bickering. So we need to get a good contractor in place and quickly. So Chad, Peter, do you want to weigh in at this point?
Sure, I can start, and I'll ask Peter for his opinion on one of these questions, but I'll answer what I can. So to start, one thing I do want to just clarify, I'm sure that the contractors are on the call. CTA, after the building committee meeting, the 44 lawsuits in 5 years, they did challenge that. I don't know what the actual number is. What I can say is that there were 34 lawsuits in CTA's DCAM file. So that is a file that looks back 5 years. When they submit their renewal application, from that point onward until they submit the bid, they're required to disclose any additional lawsuits on what's called the DCAM update statement. There are 10 lawsuits identified on the DCAM update statement. So that's where the 44 number is coming from. 34 on the file and 10 on the update statement to us, which would typically indicate it's since their last renewal application. CTA did indicate that some of those were redundant. So I don't know what the exact number is, but I want to make sure everyone understands that to be completely fair with CTA's argument. Another question was the likelihood of a bid protest. I would say it's nearly a guarantee. Many of you may not be aware, but we've actually already had bid protests on this. Chapter 149 projects. Protests are frequent. We have already had one hearing for an electrical protest with the Attorney General, and we're expecting a decision on that next week. They do happen. The projects charge forward during the protest process typically. Every single step that has been taken during this procurement, we have carefully followed the advice of the Attorney General's Office Bid Protest Unit. We're in contact with them on a near daily basis, checking every move before we make that move, right down to the presentation of the data that we showed the school building committee to make sure that the data that we were going to show was not, in their opinion, something that would not be acceptable. And we actually modified the format that the data was presented in to make sure the Attorney General was fully on board with what we were doing. We were asked many times during the building committee for PMA's opinion, and unfortunately, because we knew that a bid protest on this project was likely no matter what the decision of the building committee was, we refrained from offering that opinion, because if we offer that opinion, it really hurts the district when that bid protest happens. We have firsthand experience in dealings with these contractors. So we do have an opinion one way or the other, but this decision needs to be made strictly by the awarding authority. It's at the awarding authority's discretion. So our job is to identify a data set that's applicable to all the bidders and take them one by one so that the committee can make a decision based upon the data available. And then of course the committee is certainly welcome to do their own independent research before that decision is made. There was, so the bid difference is less than 1%. It's actually 0.6%. The dollar amount on that is $543,640. That's the premium to go to the number 2 bidder. So that is certainly a consideration. There was a question about the contractor ratings, and I do have that information, but I want to check with council to see what I can share and what I cannot share. I know the building committee has looked at CTA and Commodore's information, but I don't know if I can discuss both of those now here in this meeting. So I'll defer to council.
I think we can rely upon the school. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair. We can rely upon the school building committee's recommendation regarding CTA, their most recent recommendation to rescind the recommendation. Apologize for the redundancy, but I think we should stick to Commodore's evaluation scores in the confines of the awarding authority live right now. If I could comment as well to the bid protest, about an hour ago, this project, we got notified, is going to be subject to a bid protest. So the AGO's office was put on notice, as was myself, as was Commodore's counsel. Just a point of information for this awarding authority.
Thank you both. We have a motion to rescind the approval of CTA, and it has been seconded. If there is anyone who has not had a chance to speak on this motion and would like to, please raise your hand. I see no hands. We're going to do a roll call vote on this. A yes vote rescinds the authorization of CTA. Jim Dykeman.
Yes.
Jennifer Rose.
Yes.
Joe Tierney.
Yes.
Phil Morris.
Yes.
Zane Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Joe Glenn.
No.
And I vote yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Joe, you want to continue the conversation here?
Sure, thank you. So anyway, so the saga continues. So we, after we rescinded, our, determined that CTA was not a responsible bidder, we moved on to Commodore Builders, who we were shown the same criteria Commodore Builders as they'll, as the other builder. We discussed that. As I said, that the numbers were drastically different. One of the numbers basically, was a DCAM failure, I believe, if I'm right, Chad. There's 3. If you have 3 DCAM failures, you can no longer work. You can no longer work in the state of Massachusetts and have do projects in the state. And Commodore, I believe, had 0. Now I don't know if there's any pending. We didn't really explore that, but according to the report that we were provided with, there were no failures there. Their overall score, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was like 96. 80 is failing. So the numbers just were much better, much stronger than what we had before. So we didn't compare the two at all, but when we opened the door to Commodore, the next highest bidder, it was kind of, to me, it was a sigh of relief. And the fact that, okay, we've got a company that I feel strongly about and that would hopefully benefit the district. So we discussed that actually at length again, and made a vote, and I believe, Carol, I think it was unanimous to recommend.
I'm
Actually,
not sure it was, Joe.
yeah, I'm not.
I
I'm
think
not
it was,
positive.
I think 4 were against, maybe. I can't
Yeah.
remember the number. I don't have it.
Yeah, for the record, I'm not positive on that, but it passed by the majority. So so it was, it was, but it was a very positive discussion. So that's kind of what we bring forth to you tonight, is the recommendation to award Commodore Builders the award to build the new school.
Is
Is
that,
that a,
Joe?
That,
Is that
I'm
a
sorry.
motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion that we award Commodore Builders the bid to build the new intermediate school, or Matakey School, in an amount of $83,843,640.
Second.
second?
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. We'll have a discussion. Raise your hands, please. Phil Morris.
The unofficial vote count, since I have my own notes, but it's not the minutes, but the final vote was 15-0 in favor of the Commodore, and 15-0 vote yes to recommend to the school committee. We had, out of 18 members of the building committee, we started off with 16 members, and we had a couple had to leave, but not until the votes took place. I am aware that is incumbent upon us as elected officials of a municipal or government body, that we have to follow the bidding laws and the contract laws to the letter, and we have to take the low bid for a project unless we have cause. And our job was to see if there was enough cause. When the building committee first examined, in fact, when the school committee first looked for project managers and other consultants, we had to treat everybody with equal information and almost equal questions. So it's really a very strict process. I don't know whether I would call it flawed, but it is very complicated. And without cause, we have to go with without reason, we have to take the low bid. Commodore was the next lowest bidder when CAT was removed. Thank you.
Joe Tierney.
Jenny, I'll defer to Joe Glenn. I just had a couple
Okay.
quick comments.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
Joe Glenn.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that so the vote was what it was with the building committee. We have to respect that. I respect the vote of fellow school committee members now. And so I feel like I'm bound to support this because it was a complicated process. I made the statements that I made, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that I have tremendous respect for the building committee, all the hard work that they did. I have no animosity towards the current contractor. I hope they do a great job. I hope that we got a great building, and I plan to be just as excited as I was last week. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Joe Tierney.
Thank you, Jenny. So after we recommended, recommended Commodore Builders last night, as much as I was happy with the results and things like that, I did a little bit of research on Commodore Builders just because I wanted just to confirm my happiness in the fact that their numbers were good. If it would be okay with you, Madam Chair, if I could just read something real quick that I found. Again, it's online, so it has to be true, but whatever. This came from a 2016 article from the University of Lowell College of Engineering. And it states that Commodore Builders, founded in 2002 by Joseph J. Albanese, class of 1984, was ranked by Boston Business Journal as the last year as the 6th largest veteran-owned business in Massachusetts. It goes on to say, my 29-year career in the military service and global perspective gave me the helped me keep the long view that guided the company through rocky roads. He said that those were the tough years, but my military training gave me the courage to lead with purpose, to keep my moral compass, and to remain loyal to my convictions. I learned that complacency kills, and on the battlefield and in business world. In the military, everyone has a clearly defined job. In my civilian career, I have valued the same clarity around the roles and responsibilities, because in an integrated organization, success depends on each person doing his or her job. Albanese served on active duty with the Naval Engineering Corps, the CEC, from 1981 to 1988, and as a Navy reservist from 1988 to 2010. 2015, Albanese was inducted to the University of Massachusetts Lowell Francis Academy of Distinguished Engineers. So to me, again, I that kind of just reaffirms my my conviction that this is a good company to go with. It's being, I believe, led by someone that has done hard work. It also shows me, and for the kids that are out there that are seniors, sometimes, those high, Bentleys and all those other schools, UMass Lowell is probably one of the best engineering colleges in the state right now. It doesn't matter if, it's Boston or private school or public, but UMass Lowell is the top engineering school in the state. So again, I just wanted to share that with you to kind of just, that's where we're going to, I hope. So thank you.
Chad, is there anything you can tell us about experience or knowledge of Commodore without bid protest?
Yeah, so Commodore has been around for a while, as Joe said. They are a known name in the business. Like the other general contractors, they were pre-qualified to bid on the project. They had 22 evaluated projects in their DCAM file with an average evaluation rating of 96. They did not have any failing projects in their DCAM file whatsoever. Their legal history in their DCAM file had 6 cases, and on their update statement, they had 2 demands for direct payment that were related to the COVID-19 shutdowns that impacted work at Logan Airport from subcontractors, and those have both been dismissed. We received confirmation. We did ask Commodore for clarification. They were prompt to respond. Commodore safety rating is 0.86, which is very good in the industry. So that was our fact finding on Commodore, but I'll refrain again from providing an opinion of them, just to make
Understood.
sure. Want to make sure we're on equal footing with all the bidders.
Understood. Thanks for the information, Chad. Is there any further discussion on the motion to award the bid to Commodore? Please raise your hand. All right, I see no other hands. We have a motion and a second. We're going to do a roll call vote. on this. Jim Dykeman,
Yes.
Jennifer Rose,
Yes.
Joe Tierney,
Yes.
Phil Morris,
Affirmative.
Zane Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Joe Glenn,
Army veteran Joe Glenn votes yes.
and I vote yes, so unanimous. Peter, is there anything else we need to attend to wrap this up?
Other than a motion to adjourn, Madam Chair, no. Well done, everybody.
Thanks. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Have a good
Jenny.
night.
weekend.
Onward and upward.
UMass Amherst hockey is on at 6:30. National
Enjoy.
championship.